Okay, so this is an interesting conversation, and it's going to be a very effective exercise for everybody here. Christian, one of the most important aspects, I dropped this on the audio, is being able to lead, is being able to get everything that you can out of an entrepreneur, out of the visionary, out of the business owner, things that they're not being aware of knowing, right? That's why we can't follow a templated, I'm going to ask this, then I'm going to ask that, because these are dynamic conversations. We're going to have foundational, cues that we can always lean on, but we need to be able to get inside of people to really feel the essence of their vision, where they're coming from. So Kakai.
Wow, dude, that was gravy. Everything you just said was gravy. Wow, okay, I'm about in. What's up, Christian? What are we doing next? What are we doing?
So, hey man, yeah, because that surprised me too, because that shocked me how, because I'm a type of person that I want a checklist, I want a system to follow. But Mark here is helping me because he's like an expert at interviewing people, and he doesn't even follow a damn checklist. So it's kind of amazes me, and I don't really know how he does it. But
so Christian, the first of all, I'm a little bit ahead in this conversation, so I'm going to help you lead it, because there's a lot that we actually need to get on the table, out in the open, so that because there are so many objections. This is such a sensitive conversation, and there are multiple stories happening simultaneously.
Yes.
And so being able to resonate, to understand what those stories are from the white and POC perspective, right? Because they're completely different, and yet they're completely intertwined.
True.
And that's why we're going to unwind that. We're going to unwind that twang.
You're going to keep hammering that until it gets in. That was pretty good, boy. That was pretty good. You're on top of your game today.
Do you notice how I keep finding new ways to sell that?
Yeah.
See, Kakai's not sold on the racial unwinding yet, so we're creating more visuals that helps us understand why we need to unwind this shit. Now, Kakai, out of your mouth, from whatever is going through your mind right now, give Christian a synopsis, an elevator speech on what's going on and why we need solution.
My white friends and family are asking for guidance, facilitated guidance, to walk out of the current paradigm into greater humanity. Meaning that they see that there's a different perspective, and they want assistance in seeing that different perspective. There's nothing malicious going on. There's nothing negative going on that front. It literally is, I have not lived with race. I've not lived with racism. I've not lived with whiteness. I know it's occurring, but it has never really truly affected my life. How do I go on this healing journey to even know what's going on in the current reality? So what we're seeing with the Black Lives Matter at the present moment is it's a flashpoint, a trend point. It's something to rally around. It's a flagpole to try and have a conversation about the systemic inequality that is in America and that now has become America, that we all want to walk away from but don't really know how. So it's the facilitated guidance. So if I was going to try and capture it into an emotion, and I don't know what that is, but it's intangible, but it's the inspiration to face the shadow and choose to keep living.
So Christian, what comes up for you right now?
In terms of the offer?
What he just said, what's your response?
I think it's very relevant. And I think it's I like what you said about how right now people are protesting on the street because it's kind of like a movement, the Black Lives Matter, or something to go on to. Sorry, something to join because they want to feel like they're doing something. But but the way you said it, it's not like necessarily effective. It's just something people are latching onto, and you're trying to create a solution / offer to actually make a difference that lasts long term, rather than just going and protesting and holding up signs.
So, Christian, you had a question when I told you about this the first time. Why would anybody want to buy that?
Yes, for me, not to be negative. I don't want to be like negative at all. I'm just saying, when Mark told me about, I have this new client and he gave me the synopsis, I'm like, oh wait, okay, that sounds like a good concept, but I don't think people are going to pull all their credit cards out and buy it, because it's like, I think people will just be like, well, why would I want to buy this?
So what's the real question there? As a white man, you are confused. You're not seeing the money in purchasing this product. So
I see the value. I don't see the money. People willingness to get their credit card out.
So how can you frame that question to Kakai?
How could I frame that question?
As from a personal, here's my standpoint, here's my experience, here's what I see standpoint. How would you frame that question? How would you frame that objection so that he can respond to it?
Oh, my stance is, I know there's a lot of systemic racism. Okay, I know there's a lot of systemic racism going on. I know like the bad shit that's going on, but I'm not sure how this program is going to help me make a long-term difference. Like, why would I need something like this? I think that's my question. I know bad shit's going on, but why would I pay for this?
What do I get, in other words, Christian? That's what.
Yeah. What do I get? Yeah. What do I get out of this?
We're selfish, and we think of, why would I do this unless I can see what it does for me, what it does for my life, what I get from it. So Kakai, knowing that selfishness in the white psyche, how do you respond to that? What do I get out of it as a white man? How does it help me in my life? What's different?
It gives you
It's a good question.
No. So I'm looking for the right metaphor at the present moment in my head. That's what I'm circling around with. Okay. Okay. So to borrow James Baldwin, it gives you a way out of the trap that American history has put the white person in as the default monster of the story. It is a way towards equality that is outside of the white supremacist framework of the founding fathers. It is a way to reconcile Thomas Jefferson Jr. and Thomas Jefferson Sr. It's a way to reconcile Thomas Jefferson Jr. and Thomas Jefferson Sr. There are only 6 persons that Thomas Jefferson ever emancipated. And he owned, throughout his lifetime, 600 slaves. He kept about 160, 170 on Monticello at all times. And the only ones he emancipated were his 6 children with Sally Hemings. And the first one was Thomas Jefferson Jr., who looked just like him. And the conversation between Thomas Jefferson Jr. and Thomas Jefferson Sr. is the trap that America has placed white men, where you have someone who looks just like you, you have the mirror, but they're in a totally different social status, and you're the one who has to give them the way out that is beyond heartfelt emotion, because Thomas Jefferson Sr. loved Thomas Jefferson Jr., but he still had to sign emancipation papers and deal with the fact that Jr. was pissed off that his mother was locked in a room all the days of her life. And he said this is in writing, this is in newspapers. There was lots of turmoil around Jefferson's presidential bid, but it would be the paradox of being betwixt. That unwinding betwixt that the American legacy of the genocide, the enslavement, and the segregation put on the white male body that he's born into and had absolutely nothing to do with. As we say in the 5%, when we talk to white people, I'm not mad at what happened 50 years ago. I wasn't there when Dr. King was shot. That was Jesse Jackson. I'm mad at what happened at 9 o'clock this morning, and you should be too.
So, Kakai, a few things to unpack there. One, we're at war. America's at war. What Jim Stewart said. There's two Americas.
Right.
We're at war.
Right.
And it's not a civil war. In other words, we're not being civil about it because we're not treating each other as equals.
True.
And we're not doing it from two different perspectives. One, because I'm the monster and I don't want to be the monster.
True.
That's the white perspective. What's the POC perspective?
We don't want you to be the monster either. What we want is the equitable distribution of the resources. And that doesn't seem to occur. And when we go to individuals and ask them why that doesn't occur, they either feign innocence or deflect it and saying it was the system, but the outcomes don't ever change. No matter who we put in the position, the outcomes remain the same. Why do the outcomes remain the same? We can measure, we can objectively look at the outcomes and see that they are the same. So then when we go and have a conversation with the person, we make our human appeal and it doesn't land in them, we then start making assumptions about that person because all the time they keep doing these different defenses to maintain a status quo that creates an outcome that isn't beneficial to me. And they talk about how they've never had the experience of racism when there's 132 million persons of color. And there's 198 million white people, and we go out mathematical. And most of if 89% of the 132 million persons of color report racist outcomes in their lives, then some of the 198 million white people have got to be implementing those unconsciously and not knowing that they were implementing racism.
Okay, so Christian, here's my next question, and ask me if you can figure out how I got here. Are we safe? Kakai, are we safe? Is the way that we're living safe for whites and POC?
I don't know how to frame that. Because safety, because hold on, time out. The reason is because the society was built to make the white body feel safe at all times.
But are we?
Huh?
We're at war. Are we safe?
Yes, but the question becomes, who is safe? There are people who are safe in our current system. All plantation owners are safe. We call those the 1% right now. They're all safe. That's always been true.
Yep.
The question has been overseers and the managers, the bankers, the people who implement the system that benefits the 1%. Why do they continue to do that? That becomes what we end up having to overcome. So therefore, okay, so Christian, what is it, why this makes it so complicated is that there are 4 caste systems occurring in America at any given time. On any one body, depending on the environment that they're in. That first caste system is class. We're all being crushed by that. There is no question whatsoever that everybody, all 330 million Americans, are dealing with the crushing thing called class. And there's the IMF and the World Bank and all these other people who are manipulating this like there's no tomorrow. No one debates that. Black Panthers didn't debate that. Farrakhan didn't debate that. Everybody agrees this one. Okay, this is universal. The second one is sexism. Okay, and that's what occurs to women. And most women, like 89% of them, report the same experience. We're not going to debate that. The third one becomes racism. And the last one, which is one that's forming and has been for the last 40 years, is orientation, sexual orientation. And this is in America. That one is the latest. That's most new. For real, most knew. Liberace, dude. Gay as gay can be. Made all kind of money. And you were proud to go to his concert. But nowadays, he's not frowned upon and you would throw stones at him. You get what I'm saying? There's a whole lot of manipulation that occurred. Muhammad Ali used to do promos with Liberace and not lose any masculinity points. But nowadays, you try and do that with RuPaul and you're in trouble. You're gay. That's a change, okay? There's a lot of propaganda. So mindset can change. We know mindset can change. We're trying to go from, if we got a tagline, I want to pull this out. We're trying to help people go from human doing to human being. More human being. Less human doing. The solution is to sit down and have dinner with each other. It's always been the simple human things. It hasn't been anything super complicated. The solution has never been anything super complicated. Have my back. Listen to me when I'm crying. It's the simple things. Just be human. So when we say somebody is beyond help, they're so racist, they're beyond help, what we're really saying is our smile doesn't have any influence on them, and I can't believe that. We're saying our hug doesn't have any influence on them, and I can't believe that.
Christian, why do I take a supplement?
Why do you take a supplement?
Why does anybody take a supplement?
To make themselves feel better about themselves. To make them feel better.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Why would somebody buy racial unwinding?
Or racial unwinding?
The product.
What's an unwinding? Okay, racial product, maybe to make themselves feel better about themselves, about being an anti-racist, about trying to fight racism.
No. Try again.
To get informed about racism and how to fight against it.
Do you like being the bad guy?
No.
Do you like being villainized? Do you like being a violent trigger for other people just because you're walking down the street?
No. Wait, as a white person?
Yes.
Because I feel like
do you like feeling uncomfortable when you pass a person of color and not knowing why?
No.
No. Do you want to unwind that and feel better about it so that you can coexist and be with other people? So that there is a feeling of equality between you so that you can authentically communicate and co-create rather than being a trauma trigger just because you exist?
I feel like that's how Black people feel though, when they're just walking down the street. And I feel like maybe now the white person.
Of course they do, but that's not the question.
Black people have it way worse.
Of course. Because when you are treated like an animal by a whole people for generations, it has DNA ingrained trauma. So even if you didn't experience it personally, it is ingrained in your DNA. And until it is unwound from our social fabric, we cannot feel different about it. Until we go toe-to-toe with it, one-on-one, Rocky Balboa, Clubber Lane, until we go one-on-one, we are not going to be a different society. I can't hear you, Kakai.
No, I was just cracking up laughing, man. That was great. So the Rocky analogy would be the Russian versus Rocky.
Drago.
Drago.
Ivan Draga. So for me, as somebody who experiences this, here in Portland, it's acute. I mean, just in the course of this conversation, a helicopter has flown over 3 times because there's shit going down.
Like protesting stuff?
There's something going on for police helicopters to be in, and there's 2 of them right now. So this, when you have police or military presence, are you free? Is anybody free? How can we be free? Because the only way we will be is to heal this. because this is just trauma reaction. And
True.
trauma reactions just build and build and build and build
True.
and build until a violent result always occurs. That's where we're going. That's where we're headed unless we interrupt and change the conversation. So, Christian, have we overcome the what's in it for me? If not, what's your next question?
My next question of what's in it for me. Now I get it, of why it exists. I feel like the next question would be, what exactly can I do about it if I'm just some guy, if I'm just some white dude minding my own business? What the hell can I do about this?
Boom. Easy, 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 easy. What we call the Rosa Parks rule. Rosa Parks rule. Rosa Parks rule is when it crosses my desk, I will do the right thing.
When it crosses your desk, you'll do the right thing.
Right.
Does
So
that
what
mean...
that means is when you're a nurse at the elementary school, you take the pain of the brown and black bodies seriously.
Right,
now,
that's a good...
in medical, right now they don't give pain pills out. I remember I got my teeth cleaned all the way on the inside of the gums, going to the dentist, and I was never asked to use pain pills at all on me or any kind of injections. I was just expected to be able to take it. And I'm not the only one that has the conversations where we're not giving pain pills, but just treating the pain of black people seriously and brown people seriously. Okay?
Wait, so you're saying white people would get pain pills, but black and brown people were not given it?
True.
Wow, I didn't know that. See, this is something I had no idea.
Serena Williams brought the forefront of that when she had complications in her C-section. She was bleeding internally, and she was saying that she was feeling it, and the staff didn't respond to her until she started calling on her Wimbledon championships and how it would affect their business. And that's when they started checking on her. She then went on a crusade, and in California right now, they had to pass a law to tell the hospitals to look at why that the same team would have a white woman come in with labor, and only 12% of white people in a year died, white women in a year died on their table. Whereas when a black person came in through the same team, the same situation, 236% chance of death for that black woman.
Wait, 236%
Yes,
chance?
As
opposed to 12%?
As opposed to 12%, yes. I can send you that article. So that is known. So just acknowledging that black and brown bodies feel pain, like white bodies feel. That's number one, how you can help. Or Rosa Parks rule. Number two, if you happen to be an academic administrator in elementary school, middle school, or high school, choosing to not send a black or brown body to detention. Seriously. Choosing to not use punitive measures in order to cause correction, do restorative justice tactics, where you build relationship and build community by showing the child what the impact of their behaviors are, whether it's positive or negative, but it's restorative justice to maintain that kind of milieu. But literally do not pass out detention tips. Do not use that as a way to change behavior, because what it comes down to is, again, not seeing that the black and brown body feels pain emotionally, psychologically, or physically. That's science. That's implicit bias tests that have happened. So I can send you those articles, literally. And that's where the healing needs to occur. If you are in banking and you're at a branch.
Yeah, I heard banks, like, they tend to loan money less to black and brown families, and they'll do it for white families. I heard that's part of systemic racism, of not giving money for mortgages to black families, to lower income black families, because they just, because of whatever reason.
Right. Yeah, there's a long history of that, and that's what happened is that the Dixiecrats, or under the Dixiecrats, they got together with the realtors and came up with a system, and it was red lining, blue lining, and yellow lining. And if you were red line, that was basically the Negro slums, and they kept all the black people there, and there was a red line around that property. Every blue lines or blue chip, get it? They got the high density, and that's redlining 101. We can give you those documentaries where they made those particular decisions. Yes, but it would be literally giving the person who has the credit the loan, practicing meritocracy. not affirmative action, just meritocracy. Do your job. That's how you change the system. When you allow your manager to override you, when you know that person's qualified, that is when you become complicit into systemic racism. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Right. Because the outcomes have not changed. The person met the qualifications, but the outcomes have not changed. We're still in the same space we were under Dr. King. They have those numbers. White women under Dr. King were 87% of the education workforce. White women are still now 87% of the educational workforce, 50, 60 years later. Why? Why have the outcomes not changed? That's what we're asking. How are people being complicit in following the evil orders? Now, I will say, you can't say it like that, but that's what it gets down to, that maintain the system. When we have the individual power to change it, by following the Rosa Parks rule, and when it comes across your desk, you do the right thing.
So Christian, as the copywriter, you're understanding the conversation, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So what would you need next? What would be your next line of strategy in terms of presenting questions that get you what you need in order to map out, blueprint a sales conversation?
You already provided several good stories of in the banking industry, in the hospitality industry, because I didn't know about that stuff in the hospital because I don't really spend time in hospitals. I had no idea that they favor white women over black, who they treat. I would look at, I would ask for what are the best, more stories and more statistics of like inequality within certain industries. Would that be good to add into the sales?
Here's where your mindset should be right now. What is a huge part of any promo a reflection of?
It's a reflection of how people see themselves.
It's a reflection of the offer, what's in the box. Now, what you just asked is an inadvertent way to ask the same question. I want more stories. I want more of this. Because what's in the box is just that. Okay? So your next question is, what's in the box? And his answer, just to frame it and preface it, there's going to be roughly 12 videos. It's going to be in an interview type situation. He's going to have different cameras on him. One is going to be behind the scenes, one's going to be right to the angle, and one's going to be in front of him. So we're going to be able to 1, 2, 3, cut, 1, 2, 3, cut. And it's going to be diving into where this began all the way to where we are and what we do next. So that's like the 3 steps of this video series. So your question is, what's in the box? Well, step 1, video 1, what does it mean to be white? Where did this color differentiation come from? When did modern racism begin? Kakai.
Whiteness is a byproduct of colonialism. Before 1492, you do not have racism. Julius Caesar doesn't know what we're talking about. Shakespeare doesn't know what we're talking about. You have got to have the New World or the Age of Discovery before you get this thing called racism. It's created in Vatican I, II, and III, lots of conversation. But essentially, whiteness is the byproduct of white people in brown spaces around the world figuring out they could be seen regardless to whom or what. They could not hide. They were white. They could be seen. That means they could be shot. They could be killed. It was easy. If they went into the forest, they died. Most of the colonies were along the coastline. Why? And most of the ships, you stayed in the coastline. Why? You couldn't go inside. Not until there was a major change, you had to kill a whole lot of people to create fear. Colonialism. Otherwise, they could see you and they knew you were different. They knew you came from somewhere else. All right? So in America, specifically the very first 2 times that we start hearing and seeing this march towards racism in documents is the Burgess of Virginia in 1654 and then 1681, where they actually themselves, because they are in contrast to the natives, in contrast to the Africans who started coming over in 1619. The original Africans that came in 1619 were not enslaved. Literally, this is a choice. This is a conscious choice that was made in order to exploit. In 1654, they create 4 kinds of people on North America: rich white people, poor white people or indentured servants, Africans, and natives. And inside of the codes of the colonies, they conducted themselves as if these 4 persons were real. And they gave them different statuses and rules and regulations around them, okay? White people went into native people in order to gain access to land, to say that their children who are mixed breed then could have access to the tribe because of blood. They went into black people in order to make more slaves, because once you were black and you were enslaved, you stayed enslaved. It was perpetual indentured servitude. They advanced on the idea of indentured servitude, which was contractual, for 5 to 7 years, and went to where it was lifetime in order to use that as private property, okay? So did that answer that? It was literally in response to create that. They knew they could be seen and killed. They could not move around the country. They could not penetrate without increasing their numbers and killing other people. They knew they were what? And this was strategically done on all the colonies. They would separate white men to where there was a small enough number to where they had to bond. All of this was planned out. Great Expectations by Charles Dickens has the hero of that story. His financier is a guy who was sent as a convict to Australia because they sent out the prison people. They sent the insane asylum. That's who went to the colonies, and he made good on himself in a tobacco farm and then financed the guy who was the star for Great Expectations. And he tells the story of being down there and having to deal with the colonial experience. That's how Charles Dickens communicated that to the English audience. That was done strategically.
What's your response, Christian?
What's my response? That's like a lot to take in. So that's like the beginning of the program of where it all came from.
Diving in to just the broad conversation and following up with videos that get into specificity. So one of the things that we're talking about here is a retelling of true history. Because if you don't understand where something came from, why it exists, and why it kept existing, why it keeps existing, it's really hard to unwind it, to dissolve it, to erase it, to rewrite something else. So part of the program is getting deeper into these stories. So just a couple things, just as real project transparency. All of these videos aren't mapped out yet. So when you are in the conversation this early, as a copywriter, whether you're the leading copywriter, whether you're a junior copywriter working your way up to senior level, you have to be able to understand how to create a product out of the information that we have that people are going to resonate with, how to break down the information so it's bite-sized, so we're not overwhelming people like how you might feel overwhelmed right now. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? So when you, as the copywriter, so if I'm overwhelmed, I ain't gonna show you. If I'm overwhelmed, I'm gonna put a pin in that, and I'm gonna take the next step in the conversation, and then I'm gonna go back and watch the recording. I'm gonna back process. I'm gonna see what naturally comes up as I digest the information. And then as ideas start coming up and I connect more and more with the essence of the offer, the essence of who we're helping, the essence of why it exists, then I can start writing down positioning ideas, headline ideas, mechanisms, benefits, stories. What are other things that you need to know? Like on a broad level, aside from what we've covered, what would be something else that would be really critical that you, as the leading copywriter, should be fucking on top of?
Could you share a story of how racism has impacted your life?
Hold on, before you answer
that
that wasn't the answer. The answer is, Kakai, who are you? What makes you qualified to be a leader in this conversation? Why should people listen to you? Because how many people out there pretend to, you know, like, oh, I'm a life coach. Yeah, you are. Have you made, and you're going to teach me how to manifest, how to create my life? How many millions have you made? I haven't made a million yet. Oh, snap. I don't know if you're the person for me, because I would prefer to mirror neuron with somebody who's 10 times what I want to achieve. Now, Kakai is a leader in the movement. He has tons of press, tons of exposure, tons of personal experience, like you just hit on, which is one component of the question that you're really asking, which is what makes you the leader in this conversation? What makes you relevant? Why should I listen to you? Does that make sense, Christian?
Yep.
So what's the answer, Kakai?
When I was 21 years old, my father sent me to a small gathering called the Million Man March. And I raised my hand, and just like Snoop Dogg, like Ice Cube, like Killer Mike, like quite a few celebrities that you know and don't know in Black America, I'm probably going to break down crying, but if I stood in front of Minister Louis Farrakhan, I could still raise my hand and say, sir, it has not yet come down. That's who I am. I took an oath to return back to my community and make it a better place, to make it livable. And I've been doing that for the last 26 years.
Wow.
What else do you need to know? Because there's a lot more to the answer that he hasn't revealed yet. So how are you going to get him to reveal that?
Any major experiences that happened these past 26 years? Any major breakthroughs?
Too broad.
Too broad? Yeah, I don't know. This was like your life's like purpose. Like you took an oath and past 26 years, you wanted to make this, basically make your community a better place, or make your city a better place. I don't know where you're from.
I'm from Anchorage, Alaska. We have, okay, so I'm the byproduct of the second wave of the Great Migration of my family out of the South because of KKK activity. And so we found Anchorage, Alaska to be the least racist place in America, and it has maintained that status. So you have the three most multicultural neighborhoods in the country, and those are Mountain View, Airport Heights, and Russian Jack. And they all live on the east side of town. So when I was born in 1974, Anchorage was 50,000 people. When I left it in 2018, it was 301,800 people. We have pockets of Pakistani, Samoa, Hmong, Sudanese, Somali, refugees who decided to stay and live as close to they did where they came from as possible. So they are, when I say multicultural, I don't mean multi-ethnic. I don't mean multi-assimilated. Like, they're not acting like you and I. They're not acting like America. They're acting like themselves. Multicultural wrong. And so the white people that I'm used to dealing with are very conscious that they're white, that blue jeans is white. That a cowboy hat is white. They know that they have a culture. They don't walk around with this idea that they don't have a culture. They know that, you know, the power control wheel is a part of their culture. They know this. When they come down to the lower 48, they see what I see, which is those caste systems going back and forth. The Native people that I grew up with were not broken like you see on the reservations. They owned 80 million square miles and still own 80 million square miles that they wrestled from the federal government before I was born. So I didn't grow up with any broken Native people. They speak their own language in front of you and don't care if you understand it or not. They can tell you in many places, if you're white, black, Asian, we don't want you here. And you got to back up and walk away. You can't call on state government. You can't call on nobody. Nobody's going to save you. You get what I'm saying? One of them was just, a Native person was just a lieutenant governor. I mean, having a Native person in a leadership position where I come from that's so commonplace and normal. White people don't see any difference. They don't even complain about it because it's that normal. They got 12 corporations. They hire people all day long. They're not discriminatory. They have Native hiring preferences. They're gonna take care of their own people. They have to. They got a contract with the stock. So you're not guaranteed a position. And that's true for everybody who isn't Native. They got in Anchorage, Native people have their own hospital where if you are Native and you go to their hospital, they are not charging you. If you're white, black, anybody else, you're getting charged. And we're all okay with this. We're on their land. It's at the Baskin land. We're on their land. Why wouldn't they do this for themselves? That's separation, not segregation. They'll stabilize you and then take you to a white hospital. You got two other options. They ain't hurting you. And it gets accepted. Some people call it racist, but they don't fight it.
So other things, Christian, right? You know, like media appearances, events. Think interviews you've done, exposure that you've had, audiences that you've reached. That's part of your credibility. That's part of, plus the fact, like, what's your education?
Do you want me to answer that?
Yeah.
I got a degree in American history, a BA in American history, and a minor in Western philosophy from the University of Alaska, Anchorage, 1998. I turned that into the first 10 years was working with children when it came down from in-home daycare to juvenile recidivism with the McLaughlin Detention Center. 2012, I went on something called the Juneau Hunger Strike, which lasted for 28 days. And statewide, on 2 different days, there were protests in all 3 major cities of Alaska. That would be Anchorage, Fairbanks, and Juneau, all at the same time. When I say all at the same time, same date, same time, 3 different protests going on with the news paying attention to it. That happened twice. I defeated I got a school nutrition bill, legislative bill, fully funded. We went down there for 1.9 million. We came away with 3 million. My friends and I then turned that into the creation of a media outlet called Alaska Commons. And in 5 years, we earned 34 Alaska Press Awards. I earned 2 awards, one for Extreme Muscle Girls, which was a sports write-up of a women's bodybuilding contest, and then for What We Can't Control, which was a anti-violence initiative that I conducted a focus group of. So we put 60 concerned parents after 4 Black youth killed each other in 5 days in Mountain View inside of a room. And we said that the mayor couldn't be there, the police couldn't be there. If we couldn't solve this ourselves, then we didn't need to ask anybody else. And so came up with a comprehensive plan over 5 different dimensions, and then spent the next year implementing that. And for doing that and having 3 summer rallies, which were all anti-violence, and it was so organic. We got all the local MCs to come through to perform. We got fishers, people who went fishing in order to make donations. The first time it was like, I did it like in June, it was 400 people. In July, it was 800 people. In August, for Garvey's birthday, it was 1,200 people. And that's when I said I was tired and I wasn't gonna do it no more. Anyway, I got an award from FBI Alaska branch for community leadership in 2018 for doing that.
Bam. Yeah, so I didn't know any of this, and these can all be credibility on them. Hopefully I have like pictures of them that we can stay throughout when you're introducing.
Newspaper articles. I'm on the front page on a newspaper. Yeah, man. There's Google me, and then after you Google me, tell me what more specific you want. But Google me first, like real talk.
So again, Christian, as the copywriter, you have revealed so much information, but what's the next? What you're first, and first of all, of course you didn't know that, and don't ever say that, because it's not a matter of what you, it's not about you. You need to get yourself out of the conversation. It's about continuing to be the detective, the mentalist, the investigator, the curious kid who's following the breadcrumbs that every person that you're interviewing leaves behind. So Kakai just left behind all kinds of breadcrumbs that can lead you to that next question, that next rabbit hole, right? So you have an idea for the brand, you have an idea of the conversation, you have an idea, an outline of video one in the product. What else do you need to know? Did you know there's an ebook? Let's talk about that. Ask him about, hey, have you written anything in the space that can add credibility to who you are and how people receive this message? Something critical, something that you need to be aware of. It's not on your list. So what is that? So ask him those questions. What have you done to achieve notoriety, to build your case that I am the true authority in this space, and I understand it, and I know how to heal it? That's a question for you. Good guy.
You want me to just start talking now?
Yeah.
Okay.
What are you working on?
I didn't know if you wanted him to like translate what you just said, because you were like coming from like a 600 level. Yo, man, Christian, you're doing a great job, man. I give you props, man. Okay, because your boy's coming like, you know, wow.
It's this. It's a lot of this. It's a lot of this. It's a lot of this.
It's very good. So no, but for real, Christian, give me a start. Give me a lead, please. An LEDE. Give me a lead, please. Lead question.
All right, my lead question is, like, have you written anything, or do you have any like specific like transformational stories that have you like written anything, or do you have like any stories of transformations of people you worked with that you helped to change, who had one belief beforehand, and then after you worked with them or talked to them or you impacted them, now they have a different outlook in this whole racism thing or people of color thing? Do you have any transformational stories that you can think of?
I'm even one of them. But great question. That was a great question. What inspired you to frame that question in that way?
I guess it was me thinking of, when I asked like a regular client, I asked them kind of the same thing of, what are your biggest testimonials? Like how did you help this guy start an Amazon store? So it's like I framed it in that way of like kind of like a testimonial, but this is more of like, it's not like a testimonial of, oh, I helped this guy make money. This is like a more deeper. So it's more of a question of, have you helped transform anyone with your message on how they operate or how they think differently because as a result of listening to you? Like transformational story.
Excelente. Okay. August 2019, I am at the Beloved Music Festival in Tidewater, Oregon. This is the 12th year of the Beloved Music Festival. I've been brought in as an elder to help hold space for what is called a BPOC sanctuary, Black, Indigenous, People of Color. This was the first time that Beloved had ever did anything like this, and the first time that a major festival had ever experimented with a space such as this. The young people who brought me in, I was extremely honored that they chose me and transported me there. And on Saturday at 3 o'clock, there was a Boricua who was inside of the tent, a yurt, 100 square feet. And I come in from I think Empress Sativa had just finished her set. And she was like, are you one of the people holding this space? And I was like, yes, man. I ain't moved by no attitude that she got. Come on, I grew up with this. And she was like, I've been here for the last 30 minutes. I ain't seen nobody. I was like, that was because we was partying. I was like, how long you been here? And I learned that she's a part of the entourage of one of the hip hop acts that were invited to Beloved. She is absolutely shook. She is shook is because she comes from Brooklyn. And in Brooklyn, the only experience that Black and brown bodies have in the woods, in a place called Oregon, is a horror story. So that's the only thing that's in their subconscious. I hear this, I laugh a little bit, and we put on some music. You want some tea? We start some tea. And there are some other people who start coming in because the concert is done, or that segment of the concert, because it's a 3-day concert. That act was done. And as they come in, they get some tea, they come in and out. We start a process group. And she starts laughing, learning that she wasn't the only one having the emotions that she was having, or the anxiety in reaction to the different parts of the Beloved Music Festival and the experience. So what did she end up doing? She used the bathroom, but she spent the rest of the day and slept overnight in said space, surrounded by 14, 15 people that joined her, who stayed up all night long, because the whole point is to stay up all night long on Saturday. And then went to coffee. And by noon on Sunday, was walking out among the crowd with their shoes off so she could feel the ground, just like everybody else. So she literally went from being completely shook because she had a safe space that validated her lived experience, didn't try and make her educate others that she was having the experience that she was having of their presence in their presence. She didn't have to expend that psychic energy. And so some of the medicine that we came out of that experience with was that we wanted to return back to our communities. Here we go with that guy, that thing again, and implement those kind of healing spaces. And the 3 different modules that we decided to experiment with was it got to go from talking circle to music making to dance. And it's got to be that kind of continuum. That's what we're experimenting with. So since January of 2020, after I wrote a book called When and Where We Feel Safe and documented the Beloved experience, and then sent copies to the 4 young geniuses that helped me, that brought me to the festival, by writing it down and sending it to the Beloved Festival owner, whatever his name is. I don't remember the man's name. I'll get it to you. And him co-signing on it and everything, he knows it's out there. I've been building from that concept and that idea. So right now with the Rogue Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, we've been creating the Ashland BIPOC Sanctuary, BIPOC, and having healing sessions, healing program, literally program, meaning that at Southern Oregon University this semester, when the students, Black and brown students, Latinx and Black, melted down under the pressure of being on a racist campus and in a racist city that denies racism on campus and the city, we held a healing session that included a yoga priestess, drums, a Rasta man doing sound therapy, dance. I'm living out what we suggested in the book. And the current offering is an ebook of about 12,000 words that we're putting together and refining. And it's processing our collective trauma. Something right now just gets me, police on Black crime. And I test marketed the title on my Facebook and got corrections. So they said that they liked the second title. That's the one I'm gonna rattle off to you. But what it does is start off with, in the first chapter, the demonstration of how systemic police brutality is, with an example from Anchorage, Alaska, where a young Samoan police officer killed a Samoan father. Okay? So we're not dealing with white people or black people at all. Same outcome, same response for the police department. And the Polynesian community, when they asked for questions, got treated no differently than every community gets treated when it comes down to police brutality. Hello? Okay. From there, then I go to Minneapolis and I talk about Terrence Franklin, and he was their version of George Floyd in 2013. So I go from 2012 to 2013, then go to 2014 with Mike Brown's body and the personal bias that I had to go through in order to deal with looking at police as human beings and not as monsters. From there, Dylan Roth happens in 2015, and I have one of my students who has a conversation with me about her learning that she could be mistaken for a Dylan Roth. And how does she deal with that? She's awakening to her whiteness. From there, I go to the experience here in Ashland of a 20-year-old black man who grew up here, who while walking while black in this environment in 2018 or 2 years ago, was wrongfully arrested by the Ashland police force. Okay? And then I come with my account of going to the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March, close it out with 8 points to bring the conversation from being this global social ill that we can't do anything about to the normal, everyday outcome of the Rosa Parks rule. So there you get a verbal little synopsis of what the flow of the book is. I'll do that in about 12,000 words.
Got it. Yeah, that was that was another. Every time we go on like this this long like rant, not rant, like a talk, it's like a lot to take in with this conversation.
That's what she said.
Crossover.
So, Christian, a lot of the projects that I've been on in my 15 careers, and in fact, some of the more successful ones, are when I get to help massage and mold the product so that it is extremely digestible. Because like what we're experiencing, we don't want the people who actually buy this to experience. It needs to be all organized and delineated in a way that's like, you know, like a Billy Crystal and the Princess Bride. The chocolate coating makes it go down easy. And that's what we need here, is that coating, that sweetness to the conversation that breaks it down in a way where, because just the historical aspects alone need to be broken down into multiple videos, because there's so many different conversations and different layers to just like where modern racism came from, where it started. Shakespeare didn't know what racism is? Really? You know, that's like for a lot of people really eye-opening. And you want to take note, you want to document how you're personally impacted by these revelations, these awarenesses, these new awarenesses. You mean American history, the history that we're taught in school, lies? Yeah, not just lies, but tells a completely different story about truth. Because the winners tell history. The winners are the ones that get to tell history. But that doesn't make the truth not the truth. That just means that we're waiting for the right leaders and the right time to bring that truth to the forefront. And right now, people are ready. People are so ready that they're pandering because they don't know what to do. And they don't want to coexist in a world where they are villainized and they are holding down an entire other people. Because what's in it for me? Well, how much more prosperity will exist in the world when everybody is nurtured to grow and make their impact? Let's take that question to professional sports. Babe Ruth, Bambino, the all-time home run king for a long time. Do you know what Babe Ruth's record would have been and what a lot of white baseball players' records would have been had people of color been allowed to play the sport much, much, much sooner than Jackie Robinson?
Black people weren't allowed to play baseball?
No.
Until what year?
47.
Yeah.
1947, something like that.
1940.
I think it was late.
His number was 42, but it was late.
Oh, we'll figure that. But yeah, I mean, the game had been around for over 40 years.
Yeah, we were way past the Yankee 27.
So history would have been so different. So when you realize how different history would have been had we coexisted equally, we would be in a completely radically different reality right now. But that reality is still available to us. It's still there waiting to be revealed. And that's what we're in the process. That's the journey right now. And so many people are ready to raise their hands and invest in going on that journey and having the support, because one of the reasons we don't go on that journey is we don't have the support for what inevitably comes up on both sides of the fence, white and POC. And when you then add that, oh, once a week, Kai is going to have live in his private Facebook group a Q&A where we get to process what's coming up for you and give it direction. Because without that, it just festers and makes you feel like shit. And that's not the point of any of this. We are not here to shame or guilt you. We are here to help you become aware of why that exists within you in the first place, so that we can clear it, we can unwind it, and we can move towards a reality where we can equally coexist and support each other in achieving greatness together. And that is a lofty, pie in the sky, but if we get anywhere near there anytime soon, it's still way better. And that's where we're going. 1% at a time, we awaken and unwind. 1% at a time, we deliberately co-create a reality of equality.
Right. And Mark, do you think part of the process in developing the sales message is getting them to realize that they're part of the problem without realizing it, because it's ingrained in you. So you're probably doing things that you're not aware of that are racist on a subconscious level.
Absolutely. And that's the majority of it.
Because that, in my opinion, is I grew up in Toronto, which is one of the most multicultural cities like ever. And like racism, I've never been racist. Some of my idols are people of color, but there's probably stuff that I do unconscious that I'm not even aware of, like that. Because that's like, I feel like a lot of people will take that like, wait, what? Because I feel like a lot of people say, oh, I'm not racist, but they do things that are not like directly. They do things that are indirectly racist, kind of thing.
It's in the water of the culture. It's ice cream trucks. You know, like my dad, when the ice cream truck would come through,
yeah, I don't recognize that song. What about the ice cream trucks?
That is a minstrel song. It's racist as fuck.
That's a racist song. I grew up listening to that song.
Nigga eat a watermelon, ha 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 ha. Nigga eat a watermelon, ha 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 ha.
I literally grew up like listening to that song on the ice cream truck.
Yes, that's how cultural it is.
Wow.
Right. Looney Tunes, that was a minstrel song. It was called Looney Tunes.
I saw a YouTube video of racism within Disney, like from back then. They used to like with Jim Crow, and there was like a YouTube video on that.
Yes. So it was cultural. So the cultural aspect of racism is something that seems to be gotten dismissed, or just isn't talked about at all anymore. So that's why it's kind of good to, don't worry. Yeah, before I overwhelm. So yes, you are correct. There's lots of things that happen in the United States of America that is so inbred into the culture that 99% of the people have no idea the racist origins of what it is that they're doing.
It's like, do you question why water is wet, or you just accept the fact that water is wet?
You just accept it.
And that's conditioning, and it's the same thing.
So I guess that's the people we're targeting. We're not targeting the overt racists, like who are part of the KKK and the neo-Nazis in Charlottesville. We're not, because those are like the very overt racists. We're talking about the subtle.
No, we're creating an army to take them out.
Right.
To make them so uncomfortable that they have to go off into an island and exist only together, where eventually they will become cannibals and eat each other out of existence.
Well, yeah. So to me, it's there's a person of color who works in an office at a government agency, and there's racism happening unconsciously within the white collar people, and she needs a tool that helps them understand what's going on. Is going to be a tool that the POC use to translate or to educate the white person that crosses their path that awakens, wait a minute, did I just do something? Did I try to touch your hair without asking you? Whoa, that's racist. I didn't know that was racist. Now the conversation gets started, creating a tool to give them to help with that education.
Just on a practical level, Ollie and I went on a hike. We walked a mile just to go on a hike, and we're exhausted afterwards, so we ended up getting a lift back home. And the gentleman who picked us up was a young black man, and we got in the car, and it was thick. He did not want us there. He was resentful that he had to make his living and pick our sorry asses up. There was no question about that. There was no conversation, and I was, trying to be soft and acknowledge, read the room.
Right.
And then, I say nothing the whole drive. I'm just looking out the window, and I'm just allowing this situation to be, because there's nothing for me to do or say. And
Wait,
it's
but why
only
would he
because
get pissed about having to drive you?
Because I'm a white man. I'm a trigger. I'm the reason why he's in this situation. And there's nothing I can say or do to change that in that moment, except just be.
Right.
And it was only because of Kakai's teachings that I was aware of how to be in that situation. And then when we got dropped off, I said, I appreciate it so much. Thank you. Made sure he got his tip, and that's it. He just closed the door and drove. He just said, welcome. And that was it. One word.
Yep.
And not even you're welcome. And it was, it was just like, next. And right then and there, that's all that I could do. But it's something. And what didn't happen? Nothing was there. I didn't make a stupid, awkward comment to try to appease the situation, because we were all aware of what was going on, and I didn't make it worse. I didn't inflame anything. And do you know how valuable that is?
We talked about you night long.
So this conversation goes deep, and what's interesting is some of your interviews are going to be one and done. You got everything you need. Hey, I'll email you if I have any more questions. In an interview like this, it's going to be multiple conversations, because right now you would have a ton of back process just to start elementing out your sales message, the positioning, how we're going to get people to raise their hands, and then also how to help organize the product so that we're going to frame the sales letter in a way that reflects it in the most authentic way possible, as well as doing the same for Kakai, his credibility, his background, his experience, both personal and as a teacher. Plus, all the education. And it's just like, don't you want to know what your real history is? Just like when I started off the copy, when we were start monkeying it up, July 4th, Independence Day, but nobody's independent, because if everybody's not independent, nobody's independent. If everybody's not free, nobody's free. And when you know that your freedom is hanging by a thread. It's an illusion, and it could be snapped away from you just like that. It already has for an entire people. So there's a lot to unpack. So after this conversation, when you spend an hour with somebody and there's so much energy, you need to back off, and you need to let yourself process so that you know what the next step in the creative process is, what the next step in that 80% is before you can get to that 20% where it's just easy to write, because you're so connected with the essence of everything that you're writing about and why and for. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.